Shalom, shalom and welcome. Welcome to the White Rose Family Channel. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Symmanayah, and these are the words I'm compelled to present before an awakening set-apart nation, to those who are drawn by the Almighty Father, Yahuah, to his word that was manifest before us, from the virgin birth to the sacrifice to the resurrection, to Yahuah sending his set-apart spirit in Yahusha's name, as written in John 14:26, drawn by the Almighty Father to Yahusha, his word, John 6:44. My brothers and sisters, before I get into this segment, I want to say this, that the views expressed in these messages do not necessarily reflect the views of the owners, managers, shareholders, and or their sponsors. With that said, let's get started. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al. The title of this segment is The Cost of Love. The Cost of Love. And if you're looking at the screen, you will see a footnote down here that says, "In Flea Doctrine Warning Announcement." I will soon do a more detailed message regarding this flea doctrine. But let me say this. Let me take a moment to speak on this flea doctrine matter, my brothers and sisters, before I get into the cost of love. Years ago, my brothers and sisters, over 2 decades ago, I heard some brothers on Power Talk that was in Israel saying we need to flee America, come out of her, and come to Israel. And over the course of the 2 decades, I've heard and seen people that's over in Israel or over in Africa or anywhere outside the U.S. talking about come out of Babylon. First, it is important to know we must begin to identify Babylon. I am compelled to believe that Babylon is the wicked nation's crown that the false prophet and anti-Messiah will wear, will reign over Mystery Babylon. It's not just the United States, it's all wicked nations. And if you compare the scriptures when Yaakov, whose name was Jacob, if you compare when they were born, it was a battle of 2 nations, Yaakov and Esau. There are no middle grounds. You're either on one side or the other. There's a lot of scriptures to support what I'm saying, my brothers and sisters. And why am I saying this? This flea doctrine, people are showing you a portion of scripture. I had a guy who's an elder spend many of his podcasts talking about come to Israel. And I asked him personally, where do you live in Israel? And when he told me where he lived, I asked him, I said, well, how many Hebrews are in your neighborhood? He said, oh, it's about 3 or 4 or something to that nature. And I said, you telling people to come to Israel, but yet you're staying in the suburb amongst the Ashkenazis. What are you trying to do? And I asked some of them, a lot of them were trying to tell you to come to Israel so that the numbers will increase. They have hidden agendas. And some will say they don't. They're just telling you what the scripture says. My brothers and sisters, most recently, I've seen a proliferation of individuals talking about this flea doctrine. Come out of Babylon. Come out of Babylon. My brothers and sisters, let me give you a scenario, and I'm going to explain to you my position on this flea doctrine. First of all, these individuals are taking the text, the letter, and there's a scripture that says the letter kills and the spirit makes alive. They taking a letter, a portion of scripture that talks about come away from her, come out of her, flee Babylon. I've even seen a camp say come out of her, and they say come out of the cities and into the rural areas. Everyone is taking that part scripture and believe that it means just what they promote. Coming out of the cities to the rural area is not a bad thing. But what I believe the Most High is calling us to do is get to know one another and move closer to one another. Yes, community can be good. So I am not knocking that. But to throw that scripture, come out of her, and use that as just to come out of there, and if a person leave the city and go to the rural area, what next? I am compelled to believe that there will be a final exodus, commonly known as a greater exodus. And in that, it will be akin to what happened during the days of Moses, or Moshe, or Musha, when he led the children of Yashar'al out of Egypt. They left in mass numbers, together. We don't read of scriptures where it's saying this pocket of Yashar'al left, that pocket left, somebody left here. There's one individual who has spent years talking about the flea doctrine, come out of her. And he's sitting up there and he says that, well, I'm just telling you what the scripture says. But he don't tell you and emphasize when it says, Yahuah said, I will gather you from the four corners of the earth. We don't see scriptures when Yahuah made promises to gather his children, that it's a trickle-down effect, 1 or 2 here, 3 there. Show me that scripture. When they say, well, I'm just saying the scriptures show you, say, flee out of there, come out of her. We must first identify who and what represents Babylon. It is all the wicked nations. But there's one geographic landmass that was given to Yashar'al that is known as the Promised Land, and it borders from the east. Euphrates River is the eastern border, and the Great Nile is the western border. There's much confusion. Some will say that the Promised Land is in South Central Africa. Yashar'al or Yashar'al. It appears that there are so many that can't discern what the spirit of Yahusha is saying in regards to gathering his children. The flee message, the come out of her, my people message, is to prepare our minds and our bodies for that time, that calling, that time when that door will fly open and we will know that Yashar'al will be gathered en masse from the four corners of the earth. You see, so many people don't know how to vet, to identify the true shepherds, the true leaders and guides, or identify true prophets, because they don't know how to vet, don't know how to discern fully. They're creating their own narratives. I had a brother tell me, I don't see how Yashar'al gonna come together before the Mashiach return. I just don't see trying to get these, and he quote unquote said, these Negroes together. Because he couldn't see it, he pushed against it. Severe humbling times are coming, Yashar'al. And like I said, I'm going to do a full-blown message on this. I did talk about Babylon, Mystery Babylon. I encourage you to listen to that. But what I want you to know is this, Yashar'al, this flea doctrine warning. If you had us scattered in the United States, which we are, let me ask you this question. Do you know that the United States pale in size to the continent of Africa? In other words, my brothers and sisters, it's small. And if you search out the maps comparing the United States to the continent of Africa, you will see how small it is. It is said that the continent of Africa has 54 countries in it. Now, my brothers and sisters, many of you may be aware that Yahuah did scatter us because of our disobedience. But he also said he will gather us. This flea doctrine, from those who are just saying, just get out of the U.S., just get out of Babylon, is wicked. Why is it wicked? Because of this, my brothers and sisters. If you're telling Yashar'al, who's those that are in the U.S., to flee and just get out of the U.S. and go anywhere in the continent of Africa where there's 54 countries, that's making, and you're not really saying you know and identify exactly where Yashar'al is supposed to go, just flee Babylon, quote unquote. Do you know that's promoting Yashar'al to be scattered more? I've heard brothers and sisters saying, I'm going to Tanzania, I'm going to Maui, I'm going to Kenya, I'm going to Ghana. I've heard some brothers say, just get out of Babylon. Some say, I went to the UK. Some say, I went to South Central Africa. Do you know 54 countries telling people just to flee and just get out of Babylon promotes scattering Yashar'al even more if you have not identified the footprint where Yahuah will have us to gather? So if you're promoting scattering, that's promoting dividing, that's fighting against unity. Some are ignorant and too ignorant to know that. Some didn't give that any thought. And some say, well, I'm just saying what the scriptures say. But they point to you 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 scriptures that say, come out of her or flee. And I submit to you those messages are saying, prepare your mind, body, and spirit for the call of the Almighty Father. It will come. It will come, O Yashar'al, sooner than many realize. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. If a person is saying flee and just saying go anywhere on the continent, that is huge, greater than the size of the United States, that's scattering Yashar'al even more. That's providing division even more. And believe it or not, there are Hamites and other nationalities across the continent of Yashar'al. Are you going to jump out of one wicked nation that treats you wrong into another because someone has not done their research? I've heard brothers and sisters say, well, I'm going to set up shop and business here and the business there on the continent. And so people are saying the continent to be safe. This is wicked. It joins in on a misleading individual that will claim that the Lord is telling him this. And he's not. The Almighty Father is not going to tell you to divide his children when he's in the process of gathering his children. We must learn how to study and vet when people are claiming that they are doing what they're told to do. And they're told to just teach what the words say. How you take it is up to you. And then they make statements. And I'm not mentioning any name because it's several that fit this shoe fit. And I'm not trying to get clickbait by putting the person's name in the title of here. I would say flee doctrine warning because there's a lot who take that position and there's a lot who do not. The scriptures say fear Yahuah. That's the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. We will gain the knowledge necessary. I heard a brother say that Yahuah does things decent and in order. Yes, Yashar'al will be gathered, organized and structured with leadership appointed, chosen by the Almighty Father. So I want you to know this, O Yashar'al. The scriptures say many will be led astray. Do not be seduced, no matter how charismatic a person say, no matter how determined a person is trying to just push just where it says come out of her. Come out of her is getting into the right mindset, the right spirit, and listening to what the voice of Yahuah is saying to you. We will leave in mass numbers. Picture this, O Yashar'al. Millions of people on the Western Hemisphere converging on Virginia. Both Hebrews and Gentiles anointed with power and strength from the Almighty Father, loading up on ships and going across the ocean to the promised land. To the promised land. Not looking for land they could buy and own on their own. Not looking for land they can lease for 40, 50 years. Going to a land that the Almighty Father has given them to live together in harmony and unity. You see, there must be discussion on lifestyles. I've even seen a brother crack on those who say the promised land is between the Euphrates and the Nile, saying, well, that's desert. That's desert. Notwithstanding that if Yashar'al was scattered at the time the print that he is looking at, yeah, you'll find them in South Central Africa. Yeah, you will find them in Western Africa. Yeah, you will find them across the world. And because the land became barren, that is the fruit of Yashar'al not being in the promised land. But the hint that the promised land can thrive, research, and you'll see areas where greenery, vegetation, fruit, springs are welling up out the ground, even out of trees. My point in saying this, Yashar'al, do not be deceived by those that are promoting something that is untrue. And soon and very soon, individuals will rise up with the power and might to confirm and reaffirm where Yashar'al will be going, with whom, with what resources, and what lifestyles to anticipate upon arrival to that destination. On that note, Yashar'al, I'm going to pause, but like I said, I'm going to do a segment on that, and I'll bring up the different verses, the different ones that shared. But beware. The Almighty Father does things in order, with structure. No maybes. You see, sometimes the Almighty will give us things to say and or do, and we overstep our bounds. So there are some brothers and sisters that are overstepping their bounds. There are those preparing to move to countries where they have not done the research, do not know what rights they would have. But they getting out of quote unquote Babylon. Beware, O Yashar'al. It is wicked. Fear Yahuah and follow his guidance, no matter how charismatic, no matter how large the crowd. With that said, I want to get into this segment specifically, and that is the cost of love. The cost of love. My brothers and sisters, the final exodus. Don't you want to be loved? Don't you want to be with a family of individuals that are set apart, that are seeking to do the will of the Almighty Father, that's growing in maturity and set apartness? I hear a lot of people saying, my son, my daughter, my mother, my father, mentioning relatives, cousins, in this flea doctrine, as well as in going, being gathered. I'm going to make sure my family. I can't speak for anyone else. Why not? Why not speak about Yashar'al coming together, working together? It is not a silo thing. And we will discover how much we need one another, those who will fulfill the final exodus and so much more, those who will gird up with the strength and be prepared to be martyrs for Yahusha's name. Ask yourself this question, Yashar'al. What is love? Ask yourself and those whom you fellowship to define the cost of love. What does it cost us? What is love? Are we around people who love one another or just say they love one another? Is it as simple as just speaking the word? There are people with different views on love. It would be wise to discern the true meaning of love. True love, where does it originate? My brothers and sisters, I want you to come with me to Proverbs chapter 8, verse 17, and then I want to drop down to 35 and 36, 8th chapter Proverbs. Why is the cost of love important? Let's see. In Proverbs 8:17, it reads, I love those who love me, and those who earnestly seek me do find me. See, if you earnestly seek him, you find him, and you'll find out the love that he has for us and how to love him. Proverbs 8:35 and 36 says, for whoever finds me, you see what I'm saying? Finds me shall find life and obtain favor from Yahuah. But he who sins against me injures himself. All who hate me love death. Now, my brothers and sisters, as I read these words, did anyone mention the life in these passages? Have you read this chapter regarding love? 1 Corinthians 13th chapter. Let me read 13, 1 through 7, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the verses in the next slide. 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 7 says, if I speak with the tongues of men and of messengers, but do not have love, I have become as a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophecy and know all secrets and all knowledge, and if I have all belief, so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am none at all. And if I give out all my possessions to feed the poor, if I give my body to be burned, but do not have love, I am not profited at all. Love is patience, is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast, is not puffed up, does not behave indecently, does not seek its own, is not provoked, reckons not the evil, does not rejoice over the unrighteous, but rejoices in truth. It covers all, believes all, expects all, endure all. Let me continue, my brothers and sisters. Verse 8 through 13. I'm still in 1 Corinthians 13th chapter. Verses 8 through 13 says, love never fails. Now just think about it. For love never to fail, that means it has to move obstacles out the way. That means it has to defeat the things that's trying to destroy it. If you look at the love that Yahuah had for his children, he has destroyed nations, landmass, people for his love, to preserve his way of life, to make known the love that he had for his children and to what degree he will go to protect them. Love never fails. So we must know, what does it take for love to be victorious? It takes the ways, the orders, the words of the Almighty Father. It's saying, whether there be prophecy, they shall be inactive, or tongues, they shall cease, or knowledge, it shall be inactive. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part shall be inactive. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought as a child. I reasoned as a child. But when I became a man, I did away with childish matters. For now we see in the mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know as I also have been known. And now belief, expectation, and love remain. These three, but the greatest of these is love. Love, my brothers and sisters. Do you want to go on a journey with someone and discover that they really didn't love you? Do you want to spend time and effort with someone that you think love you, only to discover they never really did, or they just didn't really understand what love represents? Do you believe we can learn about the cost of love from Abba Yahuah through his words? Most definitely. And through the words that produce the actions as a result of his spirit stirring our spirit, which captivates the mind and body to demonstrate what true love is. Let's consider some instructions. Let's consider some scripture. Let's take a look at John. John chapter 15, verse 11 through 14. Come with me and visit there, my brothers and sisters. John 15, 11 through 14 said, these words I have spoken to you so that my joy might be in you and that your joy might be complete. This is my command, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, that one should lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. My brothers and sisters, love requires understanding, action, discovering what the Spirit of the Almighty Father expects. It would be wise to recognize that a great sacrifice is needed. We must make sacrifice to become acquainted with love in order to demonstrate love. We must know what that cost of love is, my brothers and sisters. Come with me. Bear with me. Hear these words, my brothers and sisters. I submit to you, our way of life has beginnings. Consider these words before we can truly recognize the presence of love. In Romans 12th chapter, verses 1 through 5. For it reads this, my brothers and sisters, Romans 12, 1 through 5. I call upon you, therefore, brothers, through the compassion of the Almighty One, to present your bodies a living offering. Some versions say sacrifice. Set apart, well-pleasing to the Almighty One, your reasonable worship. You see, we must submit ourselves as a living sacrifice before the Almighty One in order to discover the love, the magnitude, the full desires of the Almighty Father as it relates to his love for his children and the love we should have for one another. It says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is good. Is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of the Almighty One? It's a renewing of your mind. You see, some people have a definition of love and they just recirculate it, regurgitate it, not knowing the fullness of true love. Love for relationships that may deal with marriage, or love for relationship as in family relationship, a set apart family member, loving a brother, a sister, a child. You say, for I say through the favor which has been given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he should think, but to think soberly, as the Almighty One has given to each a measure of belief. For as we have many members in one body, but all members do not have the same function, so we, the many, are one body in Messiah, and members each one of one another. Do you think you can have representation of a set-apart family, a body with many members, if we don't understand the cost of love? It would be wise to understand that what we say we believe should reflect in our actions, my brothers and sisters. Have we not heard that actions speak louder than words? Do our actions measure up? Have we forged a relationship with the brother, the sister, or in the fellowship that we are in? Do we really love one another? Will we die for one another? Not because they say so or someone says so, but will we die for one another as directed by the Almighty Father, not by somebody throwing a scripture at you? Yashar'al, Yashar'al. I share this passage that I want you to read often because it is important, greatly important during such a time as this. It is important to learn how to examine all things in pursuit of set-apartness. So therefore, I want you to consider these words, and once again, I present them to you. Philippians 1:9 through 11. Philippians 1:9 through 11. And it reads, for this I pray that your love might extend more and more in knowledge and all discernment, for you to examine the matters that differ in order to be sincere and not stumbling into the day of Messiah, being filled with the fruit of righteousness through Yahusha Messiah, to the esteem and praise of the Almighty One. We must examine, do you love me? Why? What is love? How do I know that? This is what I see. Do we yield to correction when we stumble and fall? Do we work to make matters come to be of one accord? The cost of love, my brothers and sisters, critical for coming together, the coming together of a set-apart people. Prepare to witness, O Yashar'al. Prepare to witness what comes out of discipline from the Almighty Father. Yes, I said it, and I'll say it again. Discipline is of the greatest of importance. The time is now to ask yourself, are you around those who truly understand the cost of love? Are they there for you and you for them? And I'm not talking about quid pro quo, or you scratch my back, I scratch your back. I'm saying, are they demonstrating the love that the Almighty Father has given them, has given us? Yashar'al, I present the need to consider this passage very prayerfully. And I've mentioned this passage before, and I feel the need. I am compelled to believe it is necessary to echo this passage often, for time is moving swiftly, my brothers and sisters. We will learn when the scriptures talk about days being shortened, we will be moving from one time zone to the next. And mostly everyone that will survive or be alive, moving from the Western Hemisphere back to the region where life began, will put you in a time zone that will make your day shorter. You see, whether you're in California, time in California now versus what's the time in Israel is hours apart. The days will be shorter. But let me read this passage. Continue in prayer watching therein with thanksgiving, praying at the same time also for us, that the Almighty One would open to us a door for the word to speak the secret of Messiah, for which I am also in chains, so that I make it clear as I should speak. Walk in wisdom towards those who are outside, redeeming the time. Let your word always be with favor, seasoned with salt, so that you know how you ought to answer each one. My brothers and sisters, we will learn how to walk in wisdom, how to manage our time wisely. Beware, and I've said this, and this might seem like a deja vu or repeat. It is, and it is important. Beware, there are those among us who take their relatives to be more important than the set-apart family of Yashar'al, just because they're quote-unquote blood-related, or grew up together and call themselves family. We must understand precisely what to expect in the days ahead, and we are instructed on how to govern ourselves, how to examine, how to reason those who seek to obey. Come with me to Matthew 10, 34 through 42. 10, 34 through 42 reads, "Do not think that I've come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to bring division, a man against the father, a daughter against the mother, daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law. A man's enemy are those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." This is the Mashiach being quoted in Matthew. "And he who does not take up his stake and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who hath found his life shall lose it, and he that has lost his life for my sake shall find it. He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. He who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward, and he who receives a righteous one in the name of a righteous one shall receive a righteous one's reward. And whoever gives one of these little ones a cup of cold water, only in the name of a taught one, truly I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward." My brothers and sisters, I prayed, I sought to understand how to gain strength and grow in the love of Mashiach, the love that Yahusha gave me more than anybody else, including a child or children or wife. And he said to me, "What do you think takes priority? The person that gives life, that brings salvation, or trying to protect that loved one who depends on the person that gives life and salvation?" And that made a whole difference to me, my brothers and sisters, to follow he who gives life, who breathes life, who gives favor and demonstrate love. More on family. It would be wise to take these words seriously. Let's go to Matthew chapter 12, verses 46 through 50. Matthew chapter 12, verse 46 through 50 reads, "And while he was still talking to the crowd, see, his mother and brother stood outside seeking to speak with him. And one said to him, 'See, your mother and your brothers are standing outside seeking to speak with you.' But he answering said to one who spoke to him, 'Who is my mother and who are my brothers?' And having stretched out his hand towards his taught ones, he said, 'See my mother and my brothers, for whoever does the desire of my Father who is in the heavens is my brother and sister and mother.'" Remember that, my brothers and sisters, when it comes to the matter of Gentiles who have been saved and made one under the banner of Yashar'al because of Yahusha, the sacrifice and resurrection. Now, they don't turn into Hebrews, but as a nation, they are under the banner of Yashar'al, and are under the banner of a set-apart nation. There's a difference between race and there's a nationality as defined by some as race, but there's a nationality that defines what nation do you follow under. Just like you have so many people in the United States, different nationalities, but they are Americans. We will grow to understand, my brothers and sisters, and recognize that this final exodus will bring unity like never before imagined. Do not get caught up with people who do not, nor are they interested in growing in love. Some confuse sexual intimacy for love. Some confuse buying things and giving things for love. Hanging out for love. In the 24th chapter of Matthew, we see some conditions. And I ask you, if you believe the scriptures, do you believe these conditions require us to demonstrate the cost of love? When these things begin to happen, wouldn't it be better for us to be around those who know what the cost of love is, who demonstrate the love of Mashiach, the love of Abba Yahuah like nobody could imagine? Here in the 24th chapter of Matthew, verses 3 through 13, I want to read this to you, my brothers and sisters. It says, and as he sat on the Mount of Olives, talking about Yahusha, the taught ones came to him separately, saying, say to us, when shall this be, and what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? And Yahusha answered and said to him, take heed that no one leads you astray. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they shall lead many astray. People don't realize when you start saying, the Lord told me this, or Yahuwah told me this, that's like coming in his name. And they'll lead many people astray in more ways than many. But make no mistake, the plan of Yahuwah will be successful. He will gather his children, those whom he will use to fulfill the final exodus and more. It's saying you should begin to hear of fightings, reports of fighting, see that you are not troubled. For these have to take place, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation and reign against reign, and there shall be scarcities of food, deadly diseases, and earthquakes in places. Do these conditions dictate that we need to understand what the cost of love is, to be around loved ones as we find ourselves in the midst of moving away from such conditions? It say, all these are the beginning of birth pains. Then they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you. You shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Then many shall stumble, and they shall deliver up one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise up and lead many astray. What do you think is happening when someone say flee? What do you think is happening when someone is telling you Yah said this or the Lord said this, and they telling and they infusing words into your mind to cause you to move from one place to the next, places that will be in some cases worse than where you were at? Those who indirectly try to give you innuendos that they are a prophet, or just because someone say they're a prophet doesn't make them a prophet. Don't be led astray, O Yashar'al. And there are scriptures that talk about open rebuke, and there are scriptures that talk about go to one-on-one. We will understand the dynamics of all the scriptures that are written as the Almighty Father makes them alive continuously. Continuously. It's not about just reading the text from Genesis to Revelation. There's so much life that is made known and brought forth through the scriptures. Many of you may have experienced reading the passage, getting one definition, going back and reading again, and getting more out of it. Not conflicting, getting more out of it. Now, correction is a different story. Going back and you say, oh, I misread that. I misunderstood that. But getting more and more that reinforces, strengthens, reaffirms the growth and maturity, that's another thing, my brothers and sisters. Yashar'al. Oh, set apart Yashar'al. Have the discussions regarding the cost of love. It is important to know who loves the Almighty Father Yahuah. Who comes in the name of Yahusha, his word? You, O Yashar'al, me, my brother, my sister, my family. The time of the final exodus is approaching. Know what must be done regarding the cost of love. Know what sacrifices will have to be made. Know and identify those who are walking in obedience to the Almighty Father's. Begin to discuss these matters. Ask questions. Seek out wise counsel. Get to the whole matter as Yahusha will reveal. And know this, there are those he calls to be delusional. There are those he blind because of their unbelief. The fruit of set apartness will rise up before our very eyes to those who are hungry and drawing closer to the Almighty Father. The fruit of wickedness, false misrepresentation, lies, the stench will be made identifiable, invisible. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, the cost of love is a key factor. It will be wise to begin to discuss what love means. It will be wise to measure all that the Almighty Father has done for his children, from the embrace to the joy, from the comfort to the fightings, from the destruction. All of this is because he loved his children. And his children are growing to love him. On that note, thank you for your patience, your tolerance. Thank you for your endurance. Keep in mind what I said at the beginning of this message. Listen to it. Share it with others, my brothers and sisters, because some are making great mistakes, not being able to truly discern what the Spirit of Yahuah is saying as it relates to demonstrating love, the cost of love. And know this, my brothers and sisters, time will tell what side is correct. Who's giving you correct information as it relates to the final exodus, as it relates to Yashar'al coming out of wicked nations and coming to the promised land? Pray and watch. Some phenomenal things are about to occur that will cause Yashar'al stiff-necked people to start migrating closer to one another and gradually moving towards the promised land, a land that has been given them by the Almighty Father, a land that will be suitable for us to accomplish all living tasks given by the Almighty Father. On that note, my brother, my sister, my family, my prayer is that you stay encouraged, that you trust and believe, that you will grow in discernment and know how to come away from the confusion, the wicked narratives, the erroneous teachings. My prayer, O Yashar'al, is that we meet, but more than anything, you discern the voice of the Almighty Father Yahuah, who comes in his word, Yahusha, in Yahusha's name. Pray and watch. Proof will come sooner than we realize. On that note, I say to you, my brother, my sister, my family, be encouraged. Shalum.